Hello everybody, welcome to Israel's Church of Living God. I'm Brother Rodney and Brother Gerald will be reading today. We'll be doing a lesson today entitled Our Black Roots, Part 1. Our Black Roots, Part 1. I made a statement over on Facebook and I told you that a black man created this world. And some people understood and some people didn't. And we got a lot of flack about that, saying a black man created this world. So we're going to show you in this lesson that a black man did create this world. Was he a black man when he created it? No. But a black man created this world. And we're also going to show you the difference between melanated people. And when I say melanated people, I'm talking about black people. Okay? Because some people want to make African or melanated people, African people and being melanated exclusive to African people. When African people are not the only people that were melanated. Now I do realize that all people have melanin in them, but some people's skin is darker than the other. For instance, the African. For instance, us. And we are not African. We're going to show you. And we have just as much melanin in us as the African people. Now remember, we talk about our black roots. So nobody get offensive to this or none of this because we're dealing with black history. So, let's go first. Let's go to Genesis, the 10th chapter. Let's go to Genesis, the 10th chapter. And we're going to read that verse 1. Genesis 10, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Because, a lot of people think that the Africans been here for 10,000 years. And, men been here for 10,000, 15,000 years. And according to the Bible, man has not been here that long. So we're going to go right here to Genesis on the other side of the flood. So we at Genesis 10, and we're going to read that verse 1 first. Read that verse 1. Go ahead and read that.
Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood.
Now we after the flood now. So these are people that have populated the earth after the flood. So now skip to verse 6. Skip to verse 6. Go ahead.
And the sons of Ham, Cush and Mizraim, and Put and Canaan.
Now, so he said the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Now these right here is what we call African people. But they were first called the children of Ham. But this is what we call African people. We're going to show you. Skip down to verse 13. Skip down to verse 13. Go ahead and read it.
And Mizraim begot Ludim, and Anamim, and Lahabim, and Nephtuhim, and Pathrusim, and Casuhim.
Yeah, get that first slide ready, brother.
Out of who came Philistim, and Cathuim.
Keep reading.
And Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth. And the Jebusite.
Now he said Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn Heth, and the Jebusites. Go ahead.
And the Jebusites, and the Amorite, and the Girgasite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite, and afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad.
Now these are the Canaanites right here. These are black people. We're going to show you. Excuse me. Ham's seed are black, because if you go back to verse, we kind of speeded through that a little bit, but he said the sons of Ham, Cush. We're going to show you who Cush is. That's Ethiopia. Mizraim, those are the Philistines and the Egyptians came out of Mizraim. Put, that's Libya and Canaan. And these were the ones that inhabit the land the Canaanites are the ones that inhabit the land called Israel before the Israelites came in there. But read verse 19. Go ahead.
And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar, unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah.
Now, as thou go to Sodom and Gomorrah. So these were Canaanite people in Sodom and Gomorrah. African people as we know them. But go ahead and read.
And Admah, and Zeboim, even unto Lashai. These are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues, and their country.
Do you see Gentile after
and
this?
Their nation.
You don't see Gentile after this, do you? He said, these are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, in their nations. You don't see Gentile after. And if we read about Shem, you ain't going to see Gentile after Shem neither. You only see Gentile after Japhet. But now, we're going to show you this slide right here. We want to zoom in on this slide right here. And this is one of the sons of Canaan. This is one of the sons of Canaan right here. Now it says, this wall relief from the Egypt reveals an image of an ancient Canaanite. Now if you look at his face right here, these are black features or dark melanoid features, right? Or what we commonly call African. It says the Bible reveals that Canaan was the fourth son of Ham and the brother of Mizraim, who is Egypt. It was Canaan, the grandson of Noah, who Noah had cursed. So these people right here are the ones that were Noah's grandson. These are the ones that got cursed. Because you know they used to try to use that in slave times and say that that's why the black people are cursed because of what happened with Noah and his grandson Canaan. Because Noah's grandson Canaan was cursed. But we are not no Canaanites. I'm going to show you, we are not Canaanites. We are the Hebrews. Now we're going to read something right here. We're going to read about Mizraim. So Mizraim, we're going to find out who, because that's Ham's second oldest son, Mizraim. So we're just going to give you a simple definition of who Mizraim is.
Mizraim, son of Ham. The Old Testament word translated Egypt. The Old
Testament translated word what?
Egypt.
Egypt. So Cush, we're going to show you later on that that's Ethiopia. Mizraim, that's Egypt. But right there you just saw the Canaanites, which are all black people. Or if you want to get technical, some people like to say melanated. Okay, melanated people. And we're going to show you though that all Africans, Africans aren't the only ones that's melanated or have dark melanin skin. Now, let's go to Genesis 11. Because we're looking at our black roots today. We're going to look at our black roots. And our black roots do not go back to no African. We at Genesis 11, the land of Africa, as we know it today, but we are not Africans. We're going to Genesis 11. Genesis 11, pick it up at verse 10. Genesis 11 and 10. Now we're going to look at some of Shem's descendants. Genesis 11 and 10. Go ahead and read it.
These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begot Arphaxad. 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begot Arphaxad 500 years and begot sons and daughters. And Arphaxad lived 35 years and begot Selah.
Skip down to verse 22. Skip down to verse 22. Go ahead. Now Shem, remember that's the son of Noah. Go ahead and read. 22.
And Serug lived 30 years and begot Nahor. And Serug lived after he begot Nahor 200 years and begot sons and daughters.
Go ahead.
And Nahor lived 29 years and begot Terah. And Nahor lived after he begot Terah 119 years and begot sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begot Abram. Nahor.
Stop right there. He said, and Terah lived 70 years and begot Abram. Who is Abram? We looking at Abraham. Before he was called Abraham, he was called Abram. You finish that verse 26? Skip down to verse 31. Go ahead.
And Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan.
Stop right there. You see what land they went in? The land of Canaan. Who is the land of Canaan? These are Canaanites, which are what? African people.
Hamites.
Or what we Israelites say, Hamites. Because that's what the book called them, though. The sons of Ham. So we call them Hamites. So now read that verse 31 again.
And Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there.
So now we got Abraham on the scene. And Abraham came out of who? Shem. Let's go now. Let's go to First Chronicles, the second chapter. We're going to Acts, the 7th chapter, rather. Acts 7. Let me slow down some. Acts 7, and we're going to pick it up at verse 8. Acts 7 and 8. We're going to deal with Abraham and some of his descendants now. Acts 7 and 8. When you get it, go ahead and read.
And he gave him the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham begot Isaac. And circumcised him in the 8th day. And Isaac begot Jacob. And Jacob begot the 12 patriarchs.
Stop right there. So Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac begot Jacob. And Jacob begot the 12 patriarchs, which are the 12 tribes of Israel. That's what we're dealing with right here. These 12 patriarchs. We're going to show you. Verse 9, go ahead.
And the patriarchs moved with envy, sold Joseph into Egypt.
Now that's one of the brothers right there. In fact, he is the 11th brother. Joseph. He was sold into Egypt. Egypt is what? Mizraim, which is African. Go ahead and read.
But God was with him and delivered him out of all his afflictions and gave him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
Now look, because you know the Kemetic community want to brag about, say, well, where did Moses get his wisdom from? He got it from the Egyptians. Well, the Egyptians got their wisdom from Joseph, which was an Israelite first. Read that verse again, because somebody didn't hear that.
Verse 10. And delivered him out of all his affliction, and gave him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh.
He gave him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
And he made him governor over Egypt in all his house.
Go ahead. Look how wise Joseph was. Of course, the Lord was showing him favor, but look how wise Joseph was that Egypt, the Pharaoh thought Joseph so wise, he made him governor over all his house. Say, look, don't nobody compare to you, Joseph. I'm the only one that's over you. Other than that, everybody else is below you or beneath you. I'm going to make you second in command. Go ahead and read.
Now there came a dearth over all the land of Egypt, and Shanahan, a great affliction, and our fathers found no substance.
Go ahead.
But when Jacob heard that there was corn in Egypt, he sent out our fathers first.
Now, so Jacob sent out the 10 of the sons, because Benjamin was left behind, right? Joseph was in Egypt. So he sent out 10 of the sons to go into Egypt to buy corn. So they went there the first time. Joseph was viceroy. Their brother was viceroy, or like a vice president in Egypt at this time, and his own 10 brothers didn't even recognize him. So then they came back a second time. Go ahead and read verse 13 again.
Verse 12.
12, go ahead and read it.
But when Jacob heard that there was corn in Egypt, he sent out our fathers first.
Go ahead.
And at the second time, Joseph was made known to his brethren, and Joseph's kindred was made known to Pharaoh.
Stop right there now. Wait a minute. That was the second time that they had went to Egypt. How is it that they didn't know who Joseph was when they went the first time? Because if Joseph was white, like we see the Israelites, the so-called Israel, the Jews today, then they would have known right off there, this is our brother, because the Egyptian's black. The whole world knows that now since Richard Pryor went into that tomb on Saturday Night Live. We know that now. The jig is up. So now look, if Joseph had been white, like we see the Jews today, they would have known right off, hey, this is our brother Joseph. But they went back a second time, and then Joseph revealed himself to them. Because they didn't even know. Joseph, look, using all type of interpreters, talking to them, messing with them, all taking money out their bag and stuff. Look, putting money in their bag and everything. He was messing. They didn't know who he was. Why? Because he looked just like the Egyptians. That's why. He was black, just like they were. Otherwise, how could you fool me into believing you somebody else, you white, and the rest of the people around you black? You'd stand out like a sore thumb, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Let's go look at this. Let's go to Genesis 45th chapter. I'm sorry, before we go, still going too fast. Before we go to Genesis 45, let's show you these 12 sons, though. Let's go to First Chronicles. First Chronicles of second chapter. First Chronicles of second chapter. Everybody know I get excited around this time, so don't mind me. First Chronicles, the second chapter, and we're going to pick it up in verse 1. Let's look at these 12 sons real quick. First Chronicles 2 and 1. Go ahead and read it.
These are the sons of Israel.
Israel, that's Jacob. These are the sons of Jacob. Go ahead and read.
Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun.
And Zebulun.
Dan, Joseph, and Benjamin.
Stop right there. Joseph and Benjamin. These two had the same mother right here. Their mother was Rachel. Go ahead and read, because that's why Joseph was asking about Benjamin, because that's his mother's son. That's why he was asking about Benjamin. But go ahead and read, though.
Naphtali, Gad, and Asher.
Go ahead.
The sons of Judah.
All right, we'll stop right there because we don't want to go too much. We're going to hit it and we're going to keep going. So now these are the 12 tribes of Israel. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. These are the 12 tribes of Israel. So now look, Joseph was asking about his brother Benjamin. All of them was brothers, but he wanted to know about his youngest brother, his mother's son, Benjamin. So now, let's go to Genesis 45. Genesis 45. Because look, they had went back, after they had gotten there, went back to Canaan, where Jacob, their father, was, and then he sent them back again. But before he sent them back, they would say, well, you know, Dad, he was asking about you, and asking about our brother Benjamin, and all of this. And so they trying to find out, why is he asking us, this Egyptian, asking about our father and our brother? And then told one of the brothers, say, look, he going to stay here until y'all get back. I'm going to make sure y'all come back. So we're going to leave one of your brothers going to stay here. Then when y'all come back with the other brother, which was Benjamin, then I'll let all y'all go. But he didn't let him go. He revealed himself to him. That we had Genesis 45 and 1. Go ahead and read that.
Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him.
Now, because you know he had, his brothers was there this second time, so now he see his brother Benjamin, he couldn't refrain himself. He's looking at all his brothers plus Benjamin. So he couldn't hold himself. Go ahead and read. Look at what he's going to say. Go ahead. But now to keep in mind, he know them, but they don't know him. Go ahead.
And he cried, caused every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren.
While Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. Because like I said earlier, he was doing all type of stuff to him. You know, talking with them with interpreters and everything. You understand? Putting money in their bag, taking money out their bag, accusing them of this, accusing them of that. Messing with their heads. And they still couldn't figure out who he was. Now, they come back the second time. He couldn't refrain himself. You know, here go his brother Benjamin. So he put all the Egyptians out. And now he got all his brothers there. All 11 of them, including himself, which are the 12 tribes of Israel. Go ahead and read. What verse you leave off?
Verse 2. And he wept aloud. And the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard.
Go ahead.
And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph.
Now he revealed himself. He said, look, I am Joseph. But then they going to get scared and get ready to take off. And he going to like, no. The Lord God did this for a reason. But go ahead and read.
Doth my father that yet live? And his brethren could not answer him.
See that? They shocked.
They were troubled at his presence.
See, they shocked at his presence. They like, he said, does my father yet live? They looking at him like, what? Joseph? They couldn't believe it. But how is it that they didn't know that that was their brother Joseph? Because Joseph looked just like the Egyptians. Joseph was a black man, a melanated man, but he was an Israelite, a Hebrew, a Shemite, not an African, not a Hamite. Everybody understand?
Amen.
So look, African people are not the only melanated people, or dark-skinned people, or dark melanated people, however you want to put it. That don't exclusively belong to African people, because that's how people want to make out. These black scientists, they want to make everybody that's black and African. But we're going to set the record straight today.
Amen.
So we're not no Africans. We got just as much as melanin as the African. But go ahead and read though. What verse you at?
Verse 4.
And
Joseph said unto his brethren, come near to me. I pray you.
Now they must have took off. They said, look, come near to me. Go ahead.
And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life.
God did send me before you to preserve life. Excuse me, and Joseph went down in Egypt. He was a viceroy of Egypt. His own brothers didn't know who he was. Why? Because he was black, just like the Egyptians. Now, we're going to show you some slides here. And the first slide we're going to show you is the Egyptian. Now, this is Egyptian right here. It says, an ancient Egyptian, ancient Egyptian, black unwrapped mummy. Now look at his hair and look at his face right here. That is a black man. If I let my hair grow, which it won't, but anyway, if I let my hair grow, this is how my hair would look. Woolly and kinky like this. And look at his skin color. It is black. Everybody see that? We are looking at black people. Now we're going to show you one more slide here. We're going to show you one more slide. Now these are ancient Africans right here. We want you to zoom in as close as you can, as close as possible. These are ancient Africans, or pictures of ancient Africans right here. And here are some pictures right here of some ancient Israelites. Look, notice how they have braids in their hair. Right here. This is the Syrian walking these Israelites into captivity. Now, let's go to the next slide. Now, you got a close-up now. Look at these Israelites right here. These are Israelites going into exile. And this is a more close-up picture of, these are some Israelite musicians right here. And here's where they got their instruments, but this is a close-up shot of their heads right here. These are black people, but not African. Everybody understand? Because Shem had the Semitic race of people, and Ham had the African race of people. Everybody understand what I'm saying?
Amen.
Now, we're going to show you this DVD, or this DVD on melanin. So we want to get in as close as possible. Go ahead.
Melanin is a neurochemical that is produced in part through the pituitary and the pineal gland. They both play a central role in the production of melanin, which is ultimately responsible for the color that we have in our skin. Now, historically, it had always been thought that melanin played a significant role in the intellectual propensity of African people. For example, when you study some of the Greek writings on melanin or the color of Africans, many of the Greek philosophers believed that melanin played some sort of a role in how Africans had been able to create and develop some of the sciences that they had come to be known for. So melanin was always considered an intellectual sort of a chemical.
The pineal gland, which produces melanin, it's shaped like a pine cone. And the origin of the word pineal literally means resembling a pine cone. Now, in ancient symbolisms, the pine cone has always been represented because people knew the importance of the pineal gland as it related to melanin and the universe.
Melanin is a molecule, and the concept of melanin is it is black in its nature, and we find it in the cosmos, we find it in the heavens, we find it in water, we find it in land, we find it in everything that exists.
The sperm of the male and the egg of the woman, they're both layered with melanin. So that when the sperm penetrates the egg, there is a melanin explosion. And that melanin helps to formulate the fetus within that egg. And that fetus is literally coated with a melanin substance. And that melanin substance then goes on to form the brain and the central nervous system. So every human being begins with a melanin explosion.
Melanin is an intelligence. It's an intelligence because it is the dynamic, the primary dynamic in every part of the cell. It's a primary dynamic in the core of the human being as well as to the surface of the human being. Its intelligence is responsible for the forming of the nervous system. Every part of the nervous system has these little black dots all through it, which essentially carry information.
So melanin, from a physical standpoint, is that substance that accounts for what black people refer to as soul. We move differently, we walk differently, we talk differently because we have access to a different form of energy than other folk.
Not only is melanin a pigment, which is so obvious, but melanin as an intelligence is a communications module that essentially broadcasts as well as receives information by way of light and sound frequency signatures.
Scholars and scientists have been having conferences about melanin, to my awareness, at least since the 1920s.
The pineal glands of most of our white brothers and sisters are calcified, and so they make less melanin. And that comes from the historical.
Okay, now, so, but most people are trying to make melanin exclusive to African people. I could have showed you some more video where they are basically saying that Israelites or Hebrews, they are black, but they're African. And I'm like, how could Israelites be African when Israelites come out of Shem? And they just as dark as the African people. But they are not Hamitic or Africans. Now I'm going to show you. We're going to Zondervan's Bible Dictionary. And we're going to look up the father of the Africans, which is Ham. Now what does it say about Ham?
Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races.
He became the progenitor of the dark races. In other words, he is the father of the dark races. Go ahead.
Not the Negroes.
But not the Negroes. Well, okay then, he's not the father of the Negroes. He's not the father of the Israelites, which are dark-skinned people. Then where did the Negroes come from then? Because we the Negroes, right? Y'all ain't got to be scared to say it. We the Negroes, right?
Right.
At least that's what people know us as Negroes. We was black, then we was Negroes, now we African Americans. But I'm here to tell you, we are not no Africans. And just for the sake of identification, I'm going to say we Negro. That's just for the sake of identification. But I'm going to show you, we are really neither. We are Israelites. So, he said, not the Negroes, what else?
But the Egyptians.
But the Egyptians. Ham is the father of the Egyptians. That's Mizraim. Go ahead and read.
Ethiopians.
That's Cush. That's Ham's first oldest son, which is Cush. That is Ethiopia. We're going to show you that. But go ahead.
Libyans.
The Libyans,
And Canaanites.
And the Canaanites, which are all African people, what we term or call African people today. But the Negroes, Ham is not the father of the Negroes. So you got to ask yourself, he's not the father of the Negroes. Neither is he the father of the Israelites, and they black. So where did the Negroes come from? We just fall out the sky, did we? But I'm going to show you, though, in this series, that we have a family tree just like everybody else. And we are an ancient people. Our people are an ancient people. Let's go now. Let's go to Acts the 7th chapter. Let's go back to Acts the 7th chapter. And we're going to pick it up at verse 17. And now we're going to pick up the birth of Moses. Acts 7 and 17. When you get it, go ahead and read it.
But when the time of the promise drew nigh, which God had sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Egypt, till another king arose, which knew not Joseph.
So now the children of Israel, they grew and multiplied in Egypt, right? Till another king that arose, which knew not Joseph. Go ahead.
The same dealt subtilly with our kindred. And evil entreated our fathers, so that they cast out their young children to the end they might not live. In which time Moses was born, and was exceedingly fair, and nourished up in his father's house 3 months. And when he was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up, and nourished him for her own son.
Now look, Pharaoh's daughter took Moses and raised him up in the house of Pharaoh. Now how could that be? Pharaoh at this time was killing all the children. So now how could that be that Moses was raised up in the house of Pharaoh and Pharaoh was a Hamite or an African? That's right. How could that be? Pharaoh at this time was killing the Hebrews or the Israelites. Go ahead and read.
And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and was mighty in words and in deeds.
Now Moses was learning all the wisdom of the Egyptians, but where the Egyptians get their wisdom from? Joseph. Which got it from who? God. So let's get this record straight. For all you Kemetic teachers always talking about Moses got his wisdom from Pharaoh or from the Egyptians. Well, the Egyptians got their wisdom from who? Joseph. Which got it from God. Go ahead and read.
And when he was full 40 years old, he came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel.
Go ahead.
And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended him and avenged him that was oppressed, and smote the Egyptian.
Now Moses, he killed this Egyptian now. So he's like, you know what? I got to get up out of here. Because one of the guys who was being defended, he said, well, look, the two brothers was getting into it. He said, hey, man, leave this guy alone. Two Israelites. He said, hey, what you going to do? You going to kill me like you killed that Egyptian? Moses like, uh-oh. Israel know it. I better hit the road. Because everybody going to know it now. So Pharaoh found out that Moses had killed an Egyptian. But look, Moses grew up in Pharaoh's house. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's house. But then he was going to kill Moses for killing the Egyptians. Skip down to verse 29. Go ahead and read it.
Then fled Moses at his saying, at this saying, and was a stranger in the land of Midian, where he begot 2 sons.
Now he in the land of Midian now, where he begat 2 sons. Now look at what one of the daughters of the Midianite priest is going to say. Keep reading.
And when 40 years were expired, there appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of the Lord in a flame of fire in a bush. When Moses saw it, he wondered at the sight, and as he drew near to behold it, the voice of the Lord came unto him, saying, I am the God of thy fathers, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses trembled and burnt and thirst, not behold.
Go ahead.
Then said the Lord to him, put off thy shoes from thy feet, for the place where thou standest is holy ground. And I have seen the affliction of my people, which is in Egypt. And I have heard their groaning, and am going down to deliver them.
He said, I am come down to deliver them. Go ahead.
And now come, I will send thee into Egypt.
Now look, he getting ready to send Moses into Egypt now to go to deliver his people. But then Moses didn't believe God. He didn't believe him. So the Lord God had him to do something. Let's go to Exodus the 4th chapter. Let's go to Exodus the 4th chapter. Because Moses didn't believe God at first. So God had to show him his power. That look, man, I'm God. You understand? But I'm going a little ahead of myself. Exodus 4th chapter. Exodus 4, and we're going to read that verse 1. Exodus 4:1. Go ahead and read that.
And Moses answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice.
So then he said, the people, they're not going to believe me. So Moses, he didn't believe God. Because he talking about what the people ain't going to believe and all this stuff. So he didn't believe what the Lord was telling him. So now, he said, now Moses said, look, the people are not going to believe what I'm saying. Go ahead and read.
For they will say, the Lord hath not appeared unto thee.
The Lord have not appeared unto thee. So he's going to tell Moses to do something. He told him to do two things, but we just going to get to the main thing that we're going to be here for. We're going to move on. Skip down to verse 6. Go ahead and read it.
And the Lord said furthermore unto him, put now thy hand into thy bosom. And
now wait a minute now. Remember, Moses was down in Egypt, grew up in Pharaoh's house, and Pharaoh at the time was killing the children. Right? But Moses grew up in this house. So if Moses had been white like we see the Israelis today, which is Israelite, but if we had seen, if he looked like that, then they would have known who Moses was. Pharaoh would have been like, kill that boy. That ain't none of your grandchild. That ain't none of my grandson. Right? So now, so he's going to tell Moses to do something right here. Verse 4, read it.
And the Lord said unto Moses, put forth thy hand and take it by the tail. And put the...
I'm sorry, verse 6. Verse 6. We don't want to read that. Verse 6.
And the Lord said furthermore unto him, put now thy hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow.
Now, so when he put his hand, and he said, put your hand in your bosom, Moses. And Moses put his hand in his bosom, and he said, bring it out now. And his hand was leprous as snow, which means his hand was white as snow. Now, if he had been a white guy, like we see the Israelis today, if he had been that color, then he would just change him a few shades light. That would have been no big thing. But if I'm black already, you turn my hand white, and the rest of me black, I'm looking, now you got my attention. Everybody understand? Yeah. Go ahead and read.
And he said, put thy hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh.
It was turned again as his other flesh. What color was his flesh?
Black.
Black. Because if it would have been no thing, he'd have turned a few shades whiter. That wouldn't have been no thing. But if I'm black, the rest of me black, and you turn my hair white, oh, man, what's going on here? This got to be God. Verse 8, go ahead.
And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe thee, neither hearken to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign.
They will believe the voice of the latter sign. What's the latter sign? him putting his hand in his bosom, he turned his hand white. And the rest of his body being black or brown, or if you want to say melanated. Let's go now. Let's go. Let's go to Numbers, the 12th chapter, because Moses is not the only one that the Lord turned white as leopards. Let's go to Numbers, the 12th chapter, Numbers 12. Numbers 12, and pick it up at verse 1. Numbers 12 and 1. Everybody got it?
Amen.
Go ahead and read it.
And Miriam and Aaron spake unto Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married.
Now look, they speaking against Moses because Moses married an Ethiopian woman. He married, you know, what color are the Ethiopians?
Black.
They, even today, aren't they? They are blue-black. But look, he said, and Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married. Now Moses had already married a Midianite woman. Now he married this Ethiopian woman. Go ahead and finish that.
For he had married an Ethiopian woman.
He had married an Ethiopian woman. Now they speaking against Moses because of this. Go ahead and read.
And they said, have the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it. Now
look, this is Aaron and Miriam coming to Moses now. Look, the Lord, he not only spoke by you, Moses, he spoke by us too. And this made the Lord upset right here. Verse 3, go ahead.
Now the man Moses was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth.
Because you know, Miriam and Aaron, they were older than Moses. So you know, this their little brother, they're like, look, he spoke to us too. Right? So now, this angered the Lord. Verse 4, go ahead.
And the Lord spake suddenly unto Moses and unto Aaron and unto Miriam. Some out ye three unto the tabernacle of the congregation, and they three came out.
Skip down to verse 7. Go ahead. Now look at what he's getting ready to tell them about Moses. Go ahead.
My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?
He said, you know what? Why weren't you all afraid to speak against my servant Moses? Then look what God gonna do. Go ahead.
And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them. And he departed.
And he just departed. I know they had been shaking in their boots. What are you gonna do? Well, I know he getting ready to do something to us. That is something. That's just like mama said, well, I'm going to get you, and then she walk off. You trembling the rest of the day. You scared the rest of the day. Or daddy, I'm going to get you when I get back. You scared the rest of the day. Now look, verse 10, what does it say?
And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow.
She became leprous, just like Moses here. He said, white as snow right here. And that's the same thing he did with Moses. When he told him to put his hands in his bosom, he turned his hands leopard as snow. But right here it said he turned Miriam. He done turned the whole person white. Now you know that had to freak everybody out. I was black. And now you done turn me white? I still got my kinky hair though, but you done turned me white. So you know that had to freak everybody out. So Moses even pleading for her. Lord, please, to turn her back. Lord said, look, if she had been ashamed of her father, when he had spit in her face, and she'd have been out of camp for 7 days, Moses started pleading for her. But go ahead and read that again.
And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow.
Go ahead.
And Aaron looked upon Miriam.
I'm sorry, skip down to verse 13. Skip to verse 13. Go ahead.
And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, Heal her now, O God, I beseech thee.
See, Moses started crying out to the Lord, heal her now, Lord. He done turned her white. But what was she before he turned her white?
Black.
She was black. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been no thing. You know, he turned it a couple of shades lighter. Wouldn't have been no thing. But you turn me, I'm black and I'm blue black and you turn me white. Now you got my attention now. But go ahead and read.
Verse 14. And the Lord said unto Moses, if her father had put spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out from the camp 7 days.
Go ahead.
And after that, let her be received in again. And Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days. And the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again.
Now, when she was brought in again, the Lord had turned her back to her natural color, which was black. Now, we're going to look up something right here. We're going to look up the word Ethiopia because Moses married an Ethiopian woman, didn't he? Who is Ethiopia?
Ethiopia. Burnt faces.
There's what?
Burnt faces.
Burnt faces. Go ahead.
Greek and Roman for Hebrew, Cush.
Cush. So who is Cush? Cush is Ham's first oldest son. That is who Ethiopia is, Cush. But you see what they call them? Burnt face. And still today they are what?
Burnt face.
Burnt face. They still black today. Now look at what the Lord said about the Ethiopians right here. I'm sorry, the Israelites. Let's go to Jeremiah. Jeremiah the 13th chapter. Look at what he said about the Ethiopians right here. Jeremiah the 13th chapter. Jeremiah 13. Look at what he said about the Ethiopians. Jeremiah 13 and 23. Jeremiah 13 and 23. When you get it, go ahead and read it.
Can the Ethiopian change his skin?
Can the Ethiopian change his skin? He cannot change his skin because he's still dark skinned or black today, isn't he? He's still burnt face today. He said, can an Ethiopian change his skin? The answer to that would be what? No. Go ahead and read.
Or the leopard his spots? Then may ye also do good that are accustomed to do